Good afternoon, students. Welcome to History class for GSS 1. My name is Dr. Mrs. Faith Ejimogu. Our topic today says Centralized States in Pre-Colonial Nigeria. We intend to achieve the following objectives. The first one is the meaning of centralized states. The second one is examples of centralized states. And then finally, characteristics of centralized states. Now we want to go to the first one, which is the meaning of centralized states. What are centralized states? Centralized states are states in which the powers of government are vested on an individual or a single administrator or a king who has absolute authority over the entire state. In other words, the king stays at the capital, and from there he controls all the activities of the people in the state. He makes laws, he makes sure that his laws are implemented, and then he sits in judgment against violators of the laws he makes. Now, in centralized states, governmental powers flow from the center to the component units. Like I said before, the king is at the center, which is the capital city, and from there, he controls all the activities of the people in the state. And don't forget what I said before, the king has absolute authority, complete power, unrestricted control over the activities of the people in the state. Now, like I said before, centralized states existed in Nigeria before the coming of the Europeans. Now, we want to look at the examples of centralized states. The first one is the Hausa states. At the head was the king, and the king went by the title Zaki. Now, number two, we have the Kanem Borno Empire. The king went by the title Mai. Number three, we have Oyo. The king went by the title Alaafin. He was at the end of affair. Number four, we have Nupe. The king was the Esut. Then we have the Igala. The king was the Ata. And then we have the Bini. The king was referred to as Oba. And then in the Niger Delta, specifically the Ijo, the king was referred to as the Amayanamo. Then we have the Efik. The king went by the title Obong. And then finally, the Shakiri kingdom, where the king went by the title Olu. So these are examples of centralized states that existed in Nigeria before the coming of the Europeans. Now, to continue from where we stopped, we want to look at the characteristics of centralized states. Now, there are so many characteristics, but we're just going to talk about the few that we have on the board. Number one, in centralized states, the king has absolute authority, complete control, unrestricted control. Nobody can question his authority in a centralized state. So all the centralized states we have mentioned and their kings, like we saw earlier, they have complete control over their territory. Number two, governmental powers flow from the center to other component units. I did say that before. The king at the center, at the capital, has control over all the other components, and his authority flows from the top, from the capital city. Number three, the king controls the political, religious, and spiritual life of the people. Yes, in centralized states, the king is all and all. He is not only the political leader, he's also seen as a spiritual leader of the people. In fact, there are some groups that even worship their kings. Number four, the king enjoys unquestionable loyalty from the subjects. The subjects are very loyal to the king because they see the king as the all in all, not only their political leader, but as a demigod. Number five, local authorities were appointed by the king, whom he delegates to function. Who he delegates function to. The king appoints local authorities. For instance, in Oyo Empire, he has the Oyo Mercy. In the Igala Empire, he has the Igala Melas. These are appointed. These are local authorities that are appointed by the king, and then he delegates functions to them. In other words, they do whatever the king says. Then, let's look at number six. Unity of command enhances quick decision making and implementation. Now, because the king is at the ends of affair, he gives authority, he gives command, and that command is obeyed all over the state. And that's why there's unity in implementation of the king's policy. And then the last one is an effective system of law and order. An effective system of law and order, because there is uniformity in the orders the king gives, and in the implementation there is uniformity. There is an effective taxation system in all the centralized states. Taxations are collected, and all the components units are aware of what they are to submit to the king as taxes. And also there is always a large army. All centralized states have a large army that they train from time to time for defense, to defend their territories from enemies, from invaders, and also for territorial expansion. They use this army to do what? To attack their neighbors, their enemies, conquer them, and incorporate them into their own territory. We call that territorial expansion. So students, these are the characteristics of centralized states. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. But before I go, I must give you an assignment. And the assignment is right on the board, and it says, list 5 advantages of centralized states. In fact, from all I have listed so far, you can easily spot out the advantages. So do a little homework and do the assignment. Thank you, and God bless you. We'll see you in our next class.